Okay, the next thing I want to look at is the discussion board posts that go along with those clinicals. So you're going to go into our course materials and you'll see discussion board posts. You're going to complete these weekly. I know it seems redundant, but I need this to keep on track of everybody. So for week 1, I want you to tell me how you're demonstrating competency in leadership. That means, how are you using, which one of these additional things are you doing to get your 64 hours? Because that's how we're saying you're competent in the clinical setting. So you have to do the 24 hours here, you have to do the 16 hours here. Show me how you plan to get the rest of them. When you do this, it works really good if you reply with starting with your name. So when you get in there, put Stacy and then hyphen, and then go ahead and put your results, and that makes it a little bit easier for me to track. And that will be for each week. Now let's look at a few of them. This first week is different, the second week is different, then the rest of them start to look alike. Let's go back over to our course map. Make you a little sick there. In the end of week 2, I want you to tell me how you're going to get your hours with your clinical. So how do you, what dates and times are you going to complete those hours with your preceptor? And then how are you going to contact that preceptor? Sometimes they want you to contact them through their work email, which we've provided for you, or sometimes they want you to text them. I want to know what that is. If you utilize their work email or personal email, whichever they give you, I want you to CC me on those interactions, please. So that's what you're going to tell me during week 2. And then once we get down to week 3, the rest of them look very similar. I just need to know what you're doing that week. So if you completed a 7 p.m., 7 a.m. shift with your preceptor, and this is what you did, I'm looking for what did you do? What did you learn? You can elaborate on this. If you had a good experience, a bad experience, feel free to make this as big as you want. And then I like this. Tell me how many hours you completed towards your 64. So if it's a week you did a preceptor, then you did a 12-hour shift, you got 12 hours towards your 64. What if it's a week you didn't work with your preceptor? Let me give you a little vertigo. But you completed this, think cultural health. Then you're going to say completed 4 out of my 64 hours for a total of 16. So now I'm up to 4 hours for my cultural health plus my 12 hours I completed last week. So I'm up to 16 hours for that. So this just helps me keep my log on my end to make sure you get your hours right. So weeks thereafter look the same thing. Oops, sorry, I need to go back and fix week 4. We look the same. So that's for your discussion board. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is this leadership project. So we're going to go back to our course. And we're going to go into the assignment tab. So look where I am. So we're watching videos. There's my syllabus with my course map. Here's my clinical evaluation that I am the clinical instructor. I'm filling out based on input from your preceptor and your completion of the discussion boards. And then the rest of those hours are way down here. So you're going to log into this. The first thing I've got, and you'll notice that almost all of them have a description of here's what you're doing and here's where the Dropbox is, or here's your rubric and here's where the Dropbox is. So this first thing is the other thing that's required by everyone. Let's look at that. So we were actually approached by a healthcare system, and I think it's because we have a BSM program instead of an ADM program, that identified some project development in the following areas. So this is what we're doing. This is your clinical group. So I've put you in clinical groups. You're going to meet virtually as a team to decide who will do what and establish your deadlines so you can hold each other accountable for that. I realize that's tough, but that's what you're going to get in the workplace too. So we're prepping you for that. You're going to research the topic using current literature and resources. You can use online resources, just don't do Wikipedia, that type of thing. And you're going to provide for references. So wherever you got the information, if it's an article, if it's a website, if it's both of them, you're going to tell me where you got those. And then you're going to prepare the project in whatever format you want that we're actually going to give to this healthcare system at the end of this course. So think about they're evaluating. I'm evaluating you based on what you're giving, and then they're evaluating our program based upon the caliber of project you give them. So I have 3 clinical groups this summer. Mr. Rivers is in charge of my first group. Here's your project. And I I apologize, Chilligane, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, is my project leader for Group 2. Here's your project. And Miss Karki is the project leader for Group 3, and here's your project. Leaders, if you need to contact me and walk through this, please don't hesitate to do this, and I'm going to show you the rubric next. The rubric is right here. So leaders, you're responsible for getting your team over to this exemplary column where we have get a score of an A, 92 to 100, and here are those things that go along with that. So I think this is fairly well spelled out, and again, the leader is responsible for this. Then when you get that project developed, go back up to here and you can see where you drop it. You put it in this project Dropbox. So it might be a PowerPoint, it might be a video, it might be a Prezi, it might be a really detailed paper, whatever works best for you and looks good. That's what you want to upload there. You're gonna that's the only thing you have to do as a group. The rest of your hours are independent and have rubrics associated with them, unless it's something like let's see, like other learning opportunities doesn't have a rubric, because I don't know what you might be thinking about. So if it's something that gets a grade, I've got a description of the product, and then the rubric that goes with it, and then I've got the Dropbox that goes with that. Let's get that up there. So it should be, here's what the assignment is, here's your rubric to get your points, and here's where you put it. So you'll notice that's pretty consistent throughout. If you have questions about this, if something doesn't make sense, then by all means holler at me so I can help you make sense out of this part. I'm wanting it to be something that you're thinking about in the mindset of a leader when you're working through these. I think that is all of these things. So I need you to take some time to look through these, figure out what you're going to do, because in that first week, that was our discussion board, is how you plan to get all of your 64 hours. And then in week 2, you're telling me in your discussion board how you're contacting your preceptor and what dates, times you're doing those clinical hours. I have to keep track of those, and it's literally the difference, I kind of say this jokingly, between me having a glass of wine at dinner or not. If I've got someone in clinical, then I don't drink a glass of wine, because something might happen and I need to come to the clinical site. So I keep a very tight log on where you're going, so I know where everyone is at all times when they're in the clinical situation. Let me see if there's anything else. I know, last thing. On the clinical evaluation tool, I'm really not requiring a midterm unless your preceptor hollers at me after your first shift and says, this is not going well. And then that would just, you and I would sit down and talk about what we need to do differently. I also have had preceptors have a student for one shift and then decline that student for more shifts. We want to make sure that does not happen to you. That would result in a negative impact on your grade or potentially dismissal from that clinical site. So let's make sure when we're going to clinical, you're putting your best foot forward at these clinical sites. You want to demonstrate your capabilities and be inquisitive, ask questions, those type of things. You guys know how to do this. So if you have any questions at all during the summer, shoot me an email. I'm really quick with responding to those emails. And let's have a good leadership clinical and class this summer. Thanks, guys.